Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Mr. Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist at Care Ratings, joining in. Welcome to the show, Madan, and it's a pleasure to speak to you. The RBI today, if you go to see, they've kept the policy rates unchanged, forecasting a 9.5% GDP drop in FY21. What's the sense that you pick up?
See, in fact, going by the decision not to touch the repo rate or CRR was more or less expected. I think that's on account of the fact that the MPC is supposed to target inflation number, the CPI inflation number, which is well over 6% and unlikely to come down anytime soon. So, notwithstanding the fact that there was a different set of independent members joining the MPC, it was largely expected that for this particular policy, there would be no change in terms of the rates. In terms of GDP forecast, yes, we were expecting a forecast to come from the GDP from the RBI, but so far they have said it will be a negative growth rate, and the first time they have attributed a number. I would tend to believe that right now they tend to be a bit more aggressive because we at Care Ratings are looking at a drop of around 8.2%. So the RBI is looking at something like 9.5%. Though I think in terms of the commentary, they appear to be more optimistic about what's going to happen in the economy. And we were a little more pessimistic in terms of Q2, Q3, but we were more optimistic of Q4 turning quite positive to bring this number of 8.2%. As RBI clearly is looking at something more dismal at around 9.5%.
Right. And with this, the committee has maintained an accommodative monetary policy stance, and you had almost 5 out of the 6 members who voted to hold this accommodative stance. For how long do you think they will be able to maintain this stance?
Yeah, I think the RBI has defined that an accommodative stance actually means they will not be increasing the interest rates anytime soon. So given the fact that if you look at the projections which the RBI has made on inflation, so right now we're talking of something in the region of going towards the 4% mark by the end of Q4. I think it's a logical corollary that you say that we maintain this accommodative stance, because if we do believe that inflation is not going to remain in the 6% plus region, it means it's going to come down, then it means that interest rates are definitely not going to be increased, even though it would take some time before they would really think of lowering the rate.
Right. And Madan, with regards to the inflation as well, we've been talking about whether the RBI needs to actually ignore the inflation numbers right now and concentrate on revival. Now, taking the view of the MPC right now, it's clearly giving us an indication that they would want to ensure that inflation remains within the target going forward as well. Does this really change anything with regards to the expectation?
And if you go back to March, I think when the pandemic struck and when the RBI first made the announcement of whatever measures were announced to counter the pandemic, at that particular point of time, I think the RBI governor had stated overtly the first time that while the MPC would be targeting inflation, but growth is not something which you can ignore. So I think we should keep at the back of our mind that even though the overwhelming factor, overriding factor is going to be inflation, but if it's really required, the RBI would be intervening in terms of providing support to growth. So even today, if you're looking at it, what the RBI is doing is that they're trying to make sure that enough liquidity is available, that there is a free flow of funds going to the corporate sector. So I think that's what they're enabling, even though at this particular point of time, with inflation being over 6%, it may not be possible for them to actually lower the rate. So they are trying to provide whatever lubricants are required for growth, though it's not coming directly in the form of an interest rate cut.
Right. And Madan, when they're talking of the growth forecast as well, clearly they've indicated that the recovery in the rural economy is expected to strengthen further, while the turnaround in the urban demand is likely to lag. Would you go with this statement? Because what's happening is that the remittances that are happening to rural India, that's something which is still lagging. Uh, you think the rural economy growth will sustain?
In fact, I have a different view here because I think we are overstating the role of the rural economy. Maybe
Correct.
because of the conditions which are prevalent today, it's generally one of gloom. Maybe things are opening up and things are looking better. But generally, when we're talking of the background of a minus 24 point degrowth in GDP, it's but natural that there are lots of hopes being put on the rural sector. But we should remember that the rural sector is not only agriculture. Maybe around 40-45% is agriculture. The balance comes from industry as well as services. They're of the different variety, more of the SME variety, which are not really doing well. And also the fact that there is a lot of concern today that even though we'll have a very good harvest, it's quite possible that the prices could come down. And when it's one thing to announce an MSP, which is not being very aggressive this time, they kind of increases. But the fact also remains we don't have a back-end procurement program for all the crops. So I think we should not overstate the fact that the rural economy, even if agriculture does well, incomes go up, they really be in a position to spend on manufactured goods. I think I would be a bit more cautious, or they're more conservative. So that's one of the reasons why we feel that we should not be overstating the rural growth story.
Right. And they're pegging real GDP growth for the first quarter of FY21 at around 20.6%. Is that really being aggressive?
The first quarter of sorry,
FY22.
FY22, I think that would obviously be at a high number. We
Mm.
haven't really worked out a quarter-wise number, but given the fact that we fell by around 24%, the jump up is going to be quite sharp. So I think it would probably logically follow. But the more important part is I've always believed that next year we'll be having a number of these numbers which look very good. But more importantly, we need to create jobs, we need to have investment, we need to have consumption. Only then can we really be convinced that we've turned around the corner. Because that statistically, all the numbers are going to look much better next year, irrespective of whether we are 8% this year or 9% or 10%.
Right. And with this, what would your outlook be, Madan, with regards to where the inflation numbers go? Because again, the projection what the RBI is looking at is almost on 6.8% for the second quarter of FY21, around 5.4 to 4.5% for the second half of FY21, and 4.3% for the first half of FY22. Do you think this is something which is going to be sustainable or achievable?
I think it'll be more on the statistical front because if you
Mm.
look at the components of your of your CPI inflation number, I think that there is going to be still pressures coming on the food side. We also believe that on the so-called core inflation numbers, on account of the higher taxes, the higher prices which are being paid, which are being charged on different services, there would be a tendency for these numbers to go up. So while the RBI is looking in terms of inflation cooling down by the time we come to the end of the year, we still think on an average basis, inflation or CPI inflation will be in the region of around 5.5%.
Right. And Madan, with regards to where the liquidity measures are concerned, the RBI assured markets that it would maintain comfortable liquidity conditions to ensure that the government borrowing program, as well as the private borrowings, go through smoothly. And they are ready to conduct market operations which are needed to keep the financial conditions comfortable. Now, taking this into consideration, the outright and special OMO, that's something that they're looking at. The size of the auction, which is going to be increased to almost 20,000 crores per auction. And this will also be the first time that they will be conducting open market operations in state development loans as well. With all of this, do you think this is something which is going to support the markets and is something which is needed and in the right direction?
I think the question you asked is pertinent. Yes, it will support the markets a lot. In terms of the STLs, I think the spreads today are widening between the GSEC and the STL. I think that's going to narrow down. Government borrowing program is going to be enabled, but I think it doesn't answer the question about whether this will all lead to higher lending. Because we have seen that even in the past, when we had this option of, I think, the September LTROs, which they spoke of, we have seen that most of them, the earlier ones have been reversed. So even today, when we're talking of TLTROs of 1 lakh crores, I'm not quite sure about how much of the older TLTROs are the ones which are going to be reversed using these funds. So is there going to be fresh lending coming on account of this? I think that's the big question about whether it's going to lead to higher investment in the economy on account of these funds. Or is it going to be a case of substitute the earlier borrowing, which was at a higher rate, which will now be going at a lower rate?
Right. So Madan, with this, when we're talking about where liquidity infusion is concerned, Is this in the right direction? Because right now, all of us have been talking about probably that a second stimulus package that could be in the offing, sectors where the government needs to increase their spends as well, and infrastructure out of that is on the forefront. Uh, the decision taken by the RBI with regards to liquidity, do you think it's in the right direction?
I think the decision taken by the RBI is in the right direction because in a situation where you're not in a position to do anything on interest rates, I think the alternative is to make sure that funds are available. And the RBI provides the structure. You're actually making sure that money is available to banks for lending. But finally, it's going to be a commercial judgment which they're going to take. Now, in terms of the government, I think the government has also been talking of getting into stimulus at the right point of time, but we don't know what's the right point of time. And if I go back to the economic package which was offered in the month of May, nearly 50% of it actually came from the RBI. So I'm not quite sure if today's 1 lakh crores, which is coming through 2 LTROs, will be a part of the next stimulus which the government is going to announce. But I really don't think the government is going to say, look, I'm going to borrow another 1 lakh crores and I'm going to spend it on infrastructure. I think we economists think it's that simplistic that we sit back and say that this is the additional expenditure which the government is going to do, which is going to lead to this virtuous backward linkages with the other sectors. I don't think the government is going to go ahead with any of these kind of programs. It's going to be more kind of an enabler. And RBI is also enabling the same thing through higher liquidity programs.
Right. Right. And with the quantum of rate cuts that we've seen so far, the expectation was that there would be some bit of support that would come in for the real estate sector as a whole as well. And now they've gone ahead and rationalized the risk weights for all new home loans, which will be availed until the 31st of March 2022. So, unlike the existing system where it was linked to both size of the home loan and the LTV, it will now be linked to only LTV of home loans. Do you think this is a timely and a step in the right direction? And do you think it will provide a fillip to the housing loan segment?
In terms more than providing a fillip, I think it will provide a lot of support to the housing. So it may not actually help to improve it, but definitely in terms of the home buyers, people who have taken loans, I think they will be the ones who will be, there will be some kind of advantage out there. And there's some kind of an incentive also provided to the bank. Because if you go back to the financial stability report of the RBI, I think there was some highlight out there that's saying that the retail loans are the ones which are going to get stressed more than, like normally we say that retail loans are the ones which are safer, corporate loans are the ones under pressure. But I think the financial stability report showed that there is pressure building up here. There were more moratoriums taken on the retail side. So I think in order to assuage these kind of fears which are there on the banking side, on the banking sector, I think that's why this particular measure has come through. So it will definitely help the housing sector and maybe indirectly also the overall real estate.
Right. And what do you make of the scheme that they've extended with regards to co-lending to all NBFCs as well as housing finance companies? Do you think that's something that will help to ease the credit availability for this sector?
Definitely, it will help the NBFCs. I think if you look at for the last 2 years, I would say that I think the measures which have been brought in by the government of India as well as the RBI to support the NBFC sectors have been very, very progressive. And I think this measure will also further help the NBFCs. But again, it's a whole question of saying that when I look at the NBFC segment, we have the larger ones or better rated ones, the ones who are not better rated. I think the larger ones have not really had too many problems, even during these difficult times. So the whole question is whether these benefits do percolate to the smaller ones, the lower rated NBFCs. So that's only something which I think time will tell whether how much of that benefit actually percolates to them.
Right. And overall, what's the impact do you see with regards to where the 10-year yields are concerned? Do you think there is a possibility, taking all these measures into consideration, they could drop to as closer to 5%?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll probably remain in the region of 6%. I think the market is still very, very apprehensive about the government borrowing program. I think the second half borrowing program says it's going to be within that 12 lakh crores, but we always believe that it's going to be major slippage on the fiscal side. And I think that's one of the reasons, irrespective of what the RBI has been doing, they have done a number of measures, including the Operation Twist, to make sure that the yields come down. But finally, if you look at the market, they still believe that the problem is really on the government side. It's not really on the liquidity side because we are still seeing large amounts of money going into the reverse repo auctions, which means that they're not really worried about saying that there's no liquidity in the system. But you still think that the government's fiscal deficit is going to overshoot. It's going to lead to large amount of borrowings. But whether the government is going to borrow through the market or whether it's going to be through the NSSF, or they're going to draw down that cash balances. There are different alternatives there. But until we get clarity on that, I think that the 10-year GSEC yield will remain in the 6 to 6.05% range. In fact, interestingly, I think when the governor was speaking, the 10-year was still going at 6%. But I think after he finished, after 1 hour, we checked up, we saw that the rates have come down to around 5.95. We see what happens on Monday, whether it will be back to 6%, or whether these announcements are going to help keep it below 6%. I think that's something that will be the first testing point, 6% mark.
Right. And do you think all this can spur retail credit growth as well? Because in spite the RBI, which has gone ahead and cut rates, the problem is that the credit growth is something which has not really been picking up, and that's been a concern. Do you think we will see that pick up from here on?
See, for retail credit, I think a lot depends upon what happens to the job market, what happens to people's income. Because today I will not be borrowing money if I'm not sure of my income. I won't be borrowing if I'm not sure of my income. So I think the retail is going to be a totally different sets of factors which are going to drive it. And there's also a certain bit of apprehension on the bank side, which let's assume that for the housing part, it has been assuaged to a certain extent by the announcement which was made today by the RBI. But retail is not going to be the driver of credit as it was maybe in the last couple of years. I think this year, given all the incentives which have been provided, I think it's going to be more in terms of the SMEs and agriculture which would be driving credit. But on the whole, we're not looking at overall growth in credit being more than 4 to 5% for this particular financial year.
Right. And Madan, very lastly, I want to come back to the change in risk weight, which is applicable, what the RBI has announced. A clarification needed on that front. Is it applicable to housing finance companies or even banks as well?
It's applied to, I suppose it applies for all the banks. Now that you've raised it, I'm not sure, but I think it applies for the entire financial system, for banks as well as housing finance companies. It will be the same role. No?
Okay, it will be playing the same role. All right, Madan. Pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for sharing that detailed analysis about the policy. Great speaking to you and great insights. We will see you back soon again. Thank you so much, and stay safe.